Ah!
1 o'clock.
Sebastian, you champion, well done. So we've already found our leopard. It's sitting just in the gully right over there. Now it looks like actually maybe Thamba that might be sitting there. I can't see nicely. It is quite far away. But look at that, isn't that cool? Good morning, mister. Yes, it is Thamba. It's our little champion who is sitting there. Now, I don't see any signs of Tundi just yet, but I would imagine she is here. But those Franklins were going crazy, and well, thank you to all of you for letting us know that you did see them. Isn't this the best way to start Cat Today? We've got a leopard in the first 5 minutes of drive, really, on Cat Today, which is fantastic. So, James, you were saying cats for Cat Today. Well, yes, Feline Friday was a bit of a flop, and there we go. So we now have cats for Saturday or Cat Today, and that is the best way to start the day. Now, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to just try and reposition ourselves a little bit. Where he's sitting now is in a little steep gully, and from this side, it's not going to be that pleasant. If I can get to the other side of where he is and just get a little bit lower than him, we're going to have the most beautiful sighting, particularly because the sun is going to come from that side. So we'll try and see if we can't get some sun on his face. Seb, let's try and see if we can't get round. Right, so we're going to reposition. We're going to try and see if we can't find a better way to view little Thamba. And while we do that, let's go across to Ali so she can tell us now what her plans are going to be and what cat she's going to find for Cat Today. Indeed, and look at those beautiful eyes. He's just looking up into the trees right now. I'm trying to see what he's staring at, but I can't actually. Oh, big yawn. Good morning, little one. Has it been a long night? Now, I know Ali says I've got a bromance with Thamba, but how can you not have a bit of a love for a cat that looks like that? He is so pretty, and he just seems to have such a character about him. I always like his sort of intriguing look in the way that everything he has to analyze and has to see what it is. Now, Rusty's being naughty and trying to slide back down the bank, so there might be a little bit of a jerk on the car as there we go, that's better. So I just pulled the handbrake up to make sure. Now, he's watching actually some doves that are sitting directly above me. Are they doves or go-away birds? No, they're doves that are sitting above me, and that's what he's busy looking at with those longing eyes, like I want to go and chase you, but that tree is far too flimsy for me to get on. The doves are sitting on tiny little spindly branches, and so I don't think he's going to be able to get down there. Oh, and an itchy back as well. Now, I don't see any sign of Tundi. We came down into this area, and I don't think she's actually here. I think she's left him again to go off and do her thing, and he knows now it's just time to sit in this area. But isn't this cool? What an epic way to start the day. And a big yawn. So, Tam, you're commenting about how beautiful Thamba's eyes are, and you want to know how old he is again. Well, I'm just trying to think now exactly when he was born, but I think it was about this time last year, so he's about a year old now. I know some of you will be able to tell me exactly when he was born, but I've just drawn a blank. I think he was born in July, if I remember correctly. May have been a little bit after that, but I think July was when he was born, so just under a year old now. And are you going to show us your backside now? Okay, well, this is typical of a little young male leopard, so there we go, July is correct. So he's just under a year old, and for a year-old leopard, he is in perfect condition. He's not the biggest. Hosanna was actually, funny enough, bigger at a year-old. I think Hosanna was slightly taller than what Thamba is, but Thamba is very stocky in comparison. He's got these very wide sort of shoulders, and his forelegs are massive. He's got big feet, and it was funny because we were talking about it the other day when we were tracking him. One of the trackers here thought they were tracking Tingana because of the size of his feet. In soft sand, they are massive. They do look like a big male track, so he's got very large feet, which is always a sign that these animals will get a little bit bigger. Now, with young male leopards, everybody always says their young male leopard is the biggest and will be the biggest, and I don't think he's going to be as big as somebody like Anderson, but I definitely think he's going to be a very bulky leopard like Mvula and Tingana have both become. They're both quite wide, stocky animals, and I think that's exactly the direction that he's going to head. He reminds me so much of Tundi's first son, Wabayiza, very similar in the way that they are built, but Wabayiza had a slightly different look to him. He had a very dark black nose and looked a bit more like Mvula, but they were both also stocky, big, beautiful eyes, and both of them quite curious in nature. The interesting thing was that Wabayiza was actually a lot more sort of shy than what Thamba has become, and I think it's because Thamba has had a lot more time with vehicles. Wabayiza grew up inside Torchwood, which is a low-density area when it comes to vehicles, and really didn't get that much exposure to cars, whereas Thamba has grown up in and around Chitwa, and therefore has had a lot of exposure to not only vehicles, but also people on foot around Chitwa Lodge, and that means that he's become a lot more relaxed. And you can see, look at him, he's really not too fazed by us at all. The fact that a young leopard has turned its back to us completely generally shows that he really isn't stressed by our presence at all, which is very cool to see. It's nice that we've got a leopard that is in that way. So hopefully this is going to be a leopard that's going to spend a lot of time around our area. So Lauren from Illinois, Chantal, just correct me if I'm wrong, if I get this wrong, but I think you said, do I know who Thamba's sister is that died? I think that's what you said, Chantal, is that right? Suspected dad. Okay, sorry, I misheard that completely. I'm down in the dip here and it's a little bit scratchy, the comms that I get. But the suspected father for this leopard is Tingana. That's who we think it is. Of course, it could also be, funnily enough, Quarantine, which would be weird, but there's also Shivambalana that was in that area. So Thandi was in that whole section with Shivambalana, Quarantine, and Tingana. Now, Quarantine wasn't that dominant a year ago, so more than likely it would be Tingana or Shivambalana that are the parents for, or the dad for this. Now, that begs the question, if it's Shivambalana or Quarantine, that would actually mean that he's been a little bit of incest, because remember, Thandi is Karula's firstborn, and then Shivambalana and Quarantine came after that from Karula as well, so it was basically like brothers mating with sisters, which is not ideal. The thing is, though, is that even if that has happened, you will find a situation where those males or females that have bred have had different fathers, and so hopefully there's slight genetic differences there. But it does happen from time to time where you will get a bit of incest or inbreeding. It just means that there wasn't a big male that pushed out that particular youngster, or the female has shifted so far from her natal territory that she's then being put in the lineup with other males that have come from her mother. So it is possible, but more than likely, more than anybody, I would imagine it's Tingana. He was the one that was seen mating very frequently with Thandi around the time that would work out for Thamba. So in my opinion, it would be Tingana. Now, I'm going to try and get a position that I don't have to look at Thamba's backside. As much as we like it, it's going to be better if we look at his face. And so while we reposition, I believe Ali has got a beautiful view of the golden orb as it rises over the eastern boundary. Well, we do indeed, and how can that not be a favorite? Look at him. He's such a cool cat. And you can actually see now, interestingly enough, a few months ago, it was about, I'd say 2 months ago, I saw Thamba, and we could see that he still had his milk teeth in, so he had 2 sets of canines in the top and bottom, but you can see those milk teeth are now gone, and his bigger teeth have come through, and so he no longer has these 2 sets of canines in his top and bottom jaw. They're all back to normal now, and so he's just fine. Now you're going to turn now behind the only bush that is there. Yes, it seems so. Now it's time for a little grooming. He's been a sleepy cat, though. He's been lying and having a really good nap. Even the green pigeons that were sitting above him earlier that he was watching flew away, and he didn't really respond to that. So I think it's been a very lazy start to his morning so far. Let's see where he goes. The sun is probably going to peak shortly just over, and I'm hoping he's going to continue to lie where he is, because if that sun hits him where he is, it's going to be perfect. Are you going to come over the top for us? There we go. That's better. Are you a sleepy cat, boy? Has it been a long day already? So, Guy, you say Thamba is so handsome, he's grown into those ears. Well, indeed, he has become a very pretty boy, and in fact, he's going to continue to grow into those ears. And I think for me, it's just the contrast between his very gold coat that he's got, and this is quite common with males. They'll often have a little bit more gold color in their coats. In fact, his coat is almost orange. I took some pictures of him the other day, and I was trying to edit them, and it keeps looking as though his coat is too orange, but now that I sit with him now, it is that way. His coat is very orangey gold in color, and so he's got that, and then those black outer sort of edges of his eyes, followed by the light greenish colored eyes, make him very striking to look at. So he is a very beautiful cat, and Well, I'm just so happy that he's been spending so much time around Djuma. You know, he's a cat that I didn't think we would get to see nearly as much with our traversing sort of changing slightly, and I thought we would be struggling a little bit with him and Thandi, but it seems like Thandi is wanting this Mulawati for herself, and given that there's no sign of Karula at the moment and nobody calling or trying to take over here, I think she's decided that this is where she's going to move in, and well, we're not complaining. I would love to have Thandi and Thamba here on a more permanent basis and see them daily. It will be fantastic if we do, and hopefully that is going to be the case. The two of them will set up in this area, and wouldn't it be nice if it's a common sight on the dam cam at night, as the two of them lounging on the dam wall and walking around this area? Seb, I certainly won't complain, will you?
No, definitely not.
Of course, it means that if Thandi does move in here, it's going to become very tough for Shongile. I think our sightings of Shongile on this sort of section are going to change somewhat if Thandi spends more time here. Given that she is larger, more experienced, she might push Shongile a little bit further, either to the south or north, or maybe even a little bit to the west. But we know that Shadow is west of us, and so I don't think Shongile is going to be able to be in this area for that much longer if these two older sisters push into these sections and take over. So it's a little bit of a sort of heavy heart if you think of it. It's a catch-22 situation. It's beautiful to have Thandi and Thamba, but I don't really want Shongile to be pushed out, and so hopefully we come to an arrangement where Thandi just takes the Mulawati and the east, and then little Shongile can take the central sections and northwards, and then we'll all be happy, and Shadow in the southwest, and then it's all sorted. What do you think, Seb? I think that'll be perfect. Three female leopards, happy days. Yes, sure. I think so. That's going to be what we're going to hope for. I really want to try and get an update on Shongile. I was talking a bit about her last night, and the fact that the guys in the south haven't seen much of her, and they said the last time they saw her she was really looking very healthy and good, and she had had a good meal and was with Hosanna, but they haven't seen her in the last few days. And I know we had tracks for a young female leopard around Philemon's cut line, so I wonder if little Shongile is just hanging around somewhere in this area and has been on a kill or something, and that's why we haven't found them. The conditions that we've had over the last few days have been perfect for predators to hunt, and so it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they actually have been hunting, and maybe Shongile has been successful and she's somewhere here and we just haven't managed to find her yet. Much like what we saw with Thandi and Thamba. Yesterday they must have been in this drainage section and we just didn't manage to find them, so it's the way it goes sometimes. Now Adele, you're wondering how many leopards we have in South Africa. Well, in South Africa I'm not 100% sure how many leopards we have in the whole country, but here in the Greater Kruger Park system they reckon that we have close to 1,000 leopards roaming around in the 8 million acres. Now of course this area is a very densely populated area of leopards. Where we are in the Sabi sands is the highest density of leopards in the world, or one of the highest densities in the world. That and the Luangwa, South Luangwa in Zambia, and then a part of India as well, and Yala National Park are the other higher density areas of leopard. So the rest of South Africa, while the leopards do occur there, have much lower populations, so it's difficult to know the exact number within South Africa. Also because it's a shy reclusive species and one that doesn't move around huge amounts of time, it makes it quite difficult to know the exact number of them. Even the count here in the Kruger Park system is not accurate. They count a lot of the time animals by using a helicopter to fly over and to try and then spot animals like that, and a leopard being so shy and so well camouflaged can easily be overlooked, and so you end up with a situation where you've got probably a bigger population than we even realize. There's been leopards recorded in Johannesburg, which is a big city, Cape Town, some of the coastal towns, and so I would say as a hazard a guess that there's probably about 2,500 to 3,000 leopards across South Africa. That would be my guess, but their numbers are declining in areas like this where we don't have too many, or here where we're protected, the leopards are thriving, but outside of this, the leopard numbers are declining because of farming and varying other activities where animals unfortunately are being killed by other predators, and they then poison carcasses and the leopards feed off it and their numbers then decline. So outside of game reserves like this, leopards numbers are declining, which is a very sad thing because, well, look at them. They are the most stunning animals out here. They're absolutely beautiful, and so hopefully we can start getting to a point where we stop poisoning carcasses and stop this decrease of leopards in the world. So Chitty Chatty Meg, you're wondering what age they get their territory. Well, Chitty Chatty Meg, it's very dependent on the other leopards within the area. So we might find a situation where, like, if you look at Shavambalan in quarantine, there weren't too many other males around. and that meant that they were able to take a territory fairly young. Both of them were in their sort of 4-year-old when they were taking a territory, whereas females tend to be a little bit earlier. We'll find that Shongile will start to set up a territory already now and start to try and work to get it. And by the time she reaches about 2.5 years, she will have some semblance of a territory already set up. It just depends, though, on the other animals that are within the area and the other females and the other males for a male leopard. So females more younger, at about 2.5 years, whereas males generally only set up a territory when they reach 4.5, 5 to 6 years. So they're much later, and that's because they need to grow and get bigger to be able to actually challenge a territory. So it's either to push another male out or to find an area where an older male is now starting to go nomadic and they can then move in. Whereas females tend to be a lot more local. They tend to take a section of their mother's territory as well as an adjacent section, and so they don't tend to move as much, which means that they can already start to set up their territory much earlier in life, which is very cool. So Shongile's still got a little bit of a way to go, unfortunately. She's still a little bit young to be trying to get a territory of her own. So Jody, you want to know what would happen if Thamba and Hosana met? Well, Jody, they actually have met before. So there was a sighting the other day with Shongile, Hosana, Thamba and Thandi all together on a kill, and apparently Thandi and Thamba just watched as Hosana and Shongile went up into trees close by and just watched them. There was no aggression shown by them. I think Thandi realizes that both of those leopards are young, small leopards. They pose no threat to Thamba in that they are of equal size, and in fact Shongile is probably slightly smaller, and so she wasn't too threatening to them at all. We would also like to think that there's probably some chemical signature that maybe she recognizes that, hang on a second, this might be part of my same lineage, but we know that with leopards they'll even be aggressive to their own daughters once they separate. So it's more a fact that she just wasn't in any way threatened by these two younger leopards. And, well, Hosana, being Hosana, he just wants to be friends with everybody, and so he kind of looks around and just watches. And the same with Thamba. They are in no way territorial, which means that they're not trying to defend their territory against anybody, and therefore they don't have to worry about chasing anyone away. So, right now, I believe Ali has found the ghost of the bush, and I'm not sure what that is, but let's go across and see, because it sounds very exciting. So, very curious. Listen to the Franklins. Now he's listening to them and watching them, thinking about it, but I think he's quite happy in his thicket. And he's got a little bit nervous. There were some other guests that arrived and he wasn't very sure about it, so he went and tucked himself into a nice thicket where he can just watch from. And, well, we've just stayed right here and at least have a nice window towards his face, and he's now just sitting watching the sun coming up, watching the Franklins, and, well, just being generally quite restless. I think he wants to move around, but without Mom being here, he's got to be patient and he's got to sit on a mound somewhere. And you can see typical of him, and from what we've witnessed over the last little bit, is that he likes higher ground. So as soon as he gets into a situation where he feels as though he's a little bit threatened, up into a higher position, and there goes our crested Franklin that's running along. Now we need to thank these guys as well as all of you for letting us know that you saw Thandi and Thamba, but these guys ultimately were the ones that alarm called that allowed us to know that he was in this area. So that's very cool to see them. So Dave, you say you thought leopards enjoyed being in trees. Well, they do enjoy being in trees, but at the end of the day, they don't rely on trees only. It's a misconception that everybody thinks that a leopard is always in a tree. That's not the case. Leopards only go up into trees when either they are threatened by another predator and they need to get away in point of safety, they'll go up, or if they're trying to put a carcass up there to get it out of the way of scavengers. And the other reason they'll go up into a tree is if it is a wet day and the grass is all wet and they don't feel like lying in the wet grass, then they often go and lie in treetops. And then if it is a hot day, they'll get up there too, because generally in summer, lots of insects on the ground. Up in a tree in the summer months means there's a bit of a breeze and far less insects up there. So you'll find that's why they get up. But they're not nearly as arboreal as everybody thinks they are. Everybody always thinks that in order to see a leopard, you need to look in a tree. And while, yes, they do spend time in trees, they're not always up there. In fact, I would say probably 90% of the sightings we have are of leopards on the ground. Now, Seb, if you can just come quickly onto my dashboard, because there's a very cool spot. So, Chitty Chatty Meg, you want to know if it's see-through. Well, no, it's not see-through. It's got a sort of light green coloration and then a sort of golden abdomen And the legs itself, I'm just trying to look at it, don't look as though they see through at all. So he looks as though he's alright. Now, sorry, I was just trying to check if maybe Thamba had moved off because the two vehicles started to move up there. But Tamba's still in his thicket. So I'll try and show you again. But you can see it's not translucent. It's just that it is so small that the legs are so thin that we can actually almost look through them. So as it gets a bit bigger, we'll find that that color will become more vibrant, and so we won't be able to actually see through it nearly as much as what we are now. Oh, little itchy abdomen. Very cool. Just shows you how much life is around us. So not only are we sitting with a leopard, but we've got a little spider, we had the francolins. It just shows you that sometimes when you stop and look around, there is so many things to see and notice, and besides the animals that are moving, just the plant life that we have in abundance around us. We're in a section where we're in a riverbed section, so there's a high water content, which means we've got a lot of interesting plants around us, and sometimes we take all of this for granted. You know, we get so caught up in one thing that it's sometimes good just to stop and just to take notice of what's actually around you and what's going around. So always good to see small and big things. Now, I think little Thamba is going to probably spend most of his day inside there. It's nice and shady in there, and well, we know Mom's not around, and so until Mom comes back, this is where he's going to sleep and take it very easy. See how interested he is in the vehicles. He keeps turning around and watching them as they move, and you see, look at that posture where he lowers his head. That's when he's a little bit more nervous and he's making himself smaller, almost as a way to hide. And so let's see what he does. He might actually decide to come back down this way, unless that vehicle turns off. If the vehicle turns off, then it should be okay. But you'll find that sometimes he will kind of make his head go down and just make himself look a little bit smaller. There we go. So that car's passed and he's actually okay. So all is good then. What are you watching? Well, it looks like he's looking over his shoulder now. And it seems everything catches this little male's attention. You can hear whenever there's a squawk of a bird, flapping of wings, he decides it's time to move, and you'll find him kind of looking in that direction, investigating. And that's typical of a young leopard. He's going to be very aware of everything and wants to know about everything. And he has to, because he's going to learn that way. So, Kylie, you want to know if leopards can be albinos? Well, no, there's no albino, but there is leucism. Now, leucism is a slightly different thing to albinos. Albinos have no color pigments, whereas leucism, they get white fur or white color pigments. And so you do get a strawberry leopard is what it's called, and it is a leopard that has a leucistic characteristic, and it has a almost light white tan coat, and it looks very different to what you see here, and the spots themselves are almost a gold color. And there was one that was seen in the northwestern part of South Africa in Madikwe Game Reserve for a while, and then we do get the opposite of that, melanistic leopards. So there were some black leopards that had been seen not too far from here. In fact, the Drakensberg Mountains that we see on our western horizon in the afternoons when we watch our sunsets, there were some black leopards that were spotted in those areas. And there's been a big study on it to try and see if they can't find more of them, but so far none that I've heard of. And I know Tara, who used to be a presenter here, she went and studied the black leopards for a while, and I know that they were trying to put up camera traps and all kinds of things, but I don't think they actually ever got a black leopard, did they? Seb, do you know?
There was
they did, but a while ago.
But a long time ago.
Yeah, so it was a long time ago, and so nothing of recent. But the strawberry leopard or the leucistic leopard was seen actually fairly recently in 2000, I think it's 2013 was the last time it was seen. I might be wrong, but it was somewhere in that area and it moved around, and I'm not sure if it's still alive or if unfortunately it's gone. You often find with leucistic animals like white lions or white buffalo that because they stand out so much, they tend to actually not survive as well. So most of the white male lions, because of how light colored they are, they battle a little bit with hunting, and then on top of that they get easily seen by other lions and they get attacked quite often, so they don't tend to sort of survive too much. And look at the shape of the grass. The grass is almost matching the shape of his face and his head. It's kind of going up his muzzle and over his eyes. But you can see how he watches. So the other vehicle is just behind us here, coming over the dam wall, and that's why he's just watching very carefully what's going on. It's interesting to see how he reacts to certain things, and I wonder, it's often a common thing that we talk about amongst us, how, because these smaller vehicles that we have, we spend a lot of time with these animals, and often we're in sighting for long periods of time, particularly by ourselves. And it's almost like these animals get a little bit more used to this smaller vehicle and are far more comfortable around it. They seem to be a little bit more nervous of the bigger cars, because we were with Thamba for quite a while before anybody else arrived, and he didn't even bat an eyelid. In fact, he was starting to fall asleep. Whereas now he's a lot more jittery, and he doesn't seem to like the fact that there's these bigger vehicles all over the place here. So, Lauren, you want to know if leopards are born with their spots? Well, yes, they are. But it's interesting with the little leopard cubs. When you first see them, their spots are so close together because of how small their body is that they actually appear more black than anything else. A little white flecks in the fur, but it looks black. And then as they get older, so those spots start to separate slightly and get the rosettes that we see now on a more larger individual. And so they are spotted, but it's just spots are so tightly packed it almost looks like they're a uniform black color. But if you look very closely, you'll see the little rosettes, just the little coloration in the middle of them, and it's more a white color to start with, and then it starts to get this gold tinge as they get a little bit older. So you can see the spots have separated slightly, and they're now those big rosettes that we know leopards are common for. So they do start out life spotted, much like all the cats, and that spotted sort of look will just help with the ability to camouflage and blend in very, very well. But he's decided not to worry about that vehicle, and he's just watching. And isn't it nice with that bit of light just catching his eye? But you can see he's just watching as that vehicle eases in. He's such a character, this little cat, and I really enjoy spending time with him, and it's been so nice to actually have an opportunity to spend long periods with him. We know that on Chitwa it's quite a busy area, and often we have very short periods that we can spend with him, whereas on this side it's a little bit quieter and we really have a lot of time that we can spend with him. So it's really cool to be able to hang out with him, and so we shall continue to do that and see what else he gets up to and any mischief that he might try this morning. And while we do that, let's go back to Ali and see how her morning is. She must be loving the bit of sunshine that has now started and the wind that has dropped, as it will mean that she's a lot warmer than she was last night. Well, Thamba is having a Saturday morning cat nap, so he's tucked his head down and just having a nice rest, and you can see he's taking it very easy at this stage and not really worried too much at all. Now, I haven't heard any francolins or anything alarm calling further south of me or around me to indicate that Thandi must be here, and the fact that he's sleeping like this would suggest that she's left him and gone off on her own mission and to her own hunting expedition. And so I think this is pretty much what we're going to get from Thamba for the rest of the morning. I think he's going to be very relaxed. Unless Thandi arrives back shortly, I don't think we're going to see too much movement from him. So we'll probably give it a little bit longer and just see, because, well, why not? If we've got a leopard, we might as well spend a lot of time with him and enjoy his company. But you can see how well this animal camouflages. It's really unbelievable to see. So Chitty Chatty Meg. Now this is an interesting one, because you're asking me, while we watch Thamba in his little jungle of his own, whether leopards live in the cities, so in concrete jungles. Well, Chitty Chatty Meg, yes. Funny enough, this is quite an interesting thing, because there's two places in the world where this happens quite regularly. One is in Mumbai, in India. There is a population of leopards there that basically is feeding off all the dogs that are in that city, and you'll find at night they come in, and it's quite interesting to watch as they move around and kind of go through the streets of Mumbai and look around for food. So there's that population. And then here in South Africa, there's been leopards seen in Johannesburg, right in the middle of the city. There's been leopards seen in the middle of Cape Town, in Gordons Bay, which is crazy as well. And so there are leopards that do move into city areas. They are the most adaptable of all of our or predators, big cats should we say, not predators, because hyenas are pretty adaptable too, but they're most adaptable of the big cats, and they seem to be able to find a way to eke out an existence completely hidden from others. So they seem to be able to find a way to move around in cities without even people knowing about them. The only reason we know about these leopards in Johannesburg is because one got hit by a car and the other one died of exposure when we had a really cold snap all of a sudden, and it was a young individual and probably just not as healthy as it should be, hasn't got as much food as normal, and maybe just that cold would have killed it like that. And so that's how we know. And then the other ones have been seen by camera traps. So without camera traps, people actually haven't physically seen a lot of these leopards in the actual area. They just know that they exist, and you see tracks every now and then, as well as then the camera traps pick up footage in the night. So it's really interesting to see just how well they do blend in. And in fact, the leopards in Mumbai, nobody really knew about them that much until they started putting up camera traps and using infrared and thermal imaging, and they then worked out this is what was going on. So yes, leopards can survive in cities, but it's not a common thing. They don't really like it. At the end of the day, as we know, predators and people don't mix very well at all, and leopards, unfortunately, because of the way that they operate, dogs are high up on the menu, and when people use their pets, they tend to get quite upset about it, and so the leopard must go. And that's why most of the cities now, leopards no longer exist, but every now and then you'll find them moving around in those areas, in certain areas of the world. So interesting that they can survive in places like that. You would think it would be completely out of their element, but they manage to do it. And it's amazing to watch how nature, and not only leopards but varying other species, have been able to create a opportunity to actually spend time in cities and use cities to their advantage, rather than kind of be pushed out and to lose that area and no longer be able to spend time there. So it's amazing how quickly they can adapt to things. And you can see that when the vehicles start, little Thamba wakes up. He's always quite interested in what's going on when vehicles are moving around, and so you'll find a system that as soon as there's a vehicle, he'll look up and walk and sort of see what's going on. As soon as everybody quietens down, I think it's going to be back to napping again. I don't think he's going to be awake for too much longer, particularly now that the sun's getting up a little bit higher. Now I believe Ali has found something very small that she wants to show all of you. I am indeed, but I'm busy looking at all the birds that are starting to come out, because there's lots of birds around that are shouting at poor little Thamba. There's some chin spot batis around, black flycatcher. There was a green-backed Cameroptera, and you see the little chin spot batis there, Seb? It's just on the edge of the tree. Just go a little bit higher, and then straight in there. You should, in the middle of the frame, there's a little chin spot batis that's bouncing around. Now down a little bit for me.
What are those?
That's nice, a little apellus. So that is now a yellow-throated apellus. I think it's yellow-throated or yellow-breasted apellus. You see them a lot in these areas. They like drainage lines, so he's around too. And it's a really nice bird party we've got this morning. And look at how it's bouncing around inside there. I'm going to try and find it in the book just to confirm the exact sort of second part of the name. I know it's a yellow-throated or yellow-breasted. Just hold on. But very cool to see. They're not ones that we get on camera very often because they bounce around so much. So we're definitely going to try and see if I can't find more bird species. Where is my chin spot batis gone? There's my chin spot batis. You see it bouncing around just underneath where the apellises are. So center of the tree, really. You can just zoom in there. There's lots of birds bouncing around. You should be able to pick up one of them. So there we go. So yellow-breasted apellus. So there we go. It's this guy over here. Now the sun is very bright on my book, so I do apologize. Can't really see what's going on, but there it is. You can see that little yellow throat that we've got there, the little black bar that we saw, and then that grey cap and the greenish wings, and then the typical very long tail that flicks about as they move. So that's a really nice one to get. It's not one that we see that often. And I was actually just having a look here. They breed at this time of the year too. So you see in June, they actually are breeders. So they don't breed very commonly in this time, but they can be breeding. So that little bee tells you that they can breed May and June, which is very odd. Most of our birds generally are breeding more in the sort of summer months. So very cool. Now, like I say, a really nice bird party, and I think they've all been attracted by the alarm calls that one or two of them have let off because of the leopard that's here. So what happens often with birds is when a leopard is around or a predator is around, alarm calls go out and all the other birds then come and flock to that area to try and spot what it is and to try and make a big noise and ward that predator off. You see it a lot with snakes and then sometimes with leopards, and so that's probably why we ended up with so many. Seb, can you try on the edge of the tree there? Oh no, it's not just gone in. But right on the right-hand side of the tree is a little bird that's bouncing around. And so I wanted to just quickly check what it was. There we go, right to the edge, go down a little bit. Oh, did it just move again? It did. You can just see the movement in there. You see it bouncing between. So that's our chin spot batises that are moving around. There it is. So that's the female with the big bright chin spot, that rusty chin that you can see there. So that's where they get the name from, and the male won't have that, so he's a little bit more plain. And there's our yellow-breasted apalices that are bouncing around. Oh, just flew away. And there was another bird in here that I was battling to ID. It was a much larger bird and also yellow in coloration, but I didn't get a good idea on it. I'm going to look through my book a little bit later because it had a very distinct... there's a puffback. So there's our puffback with the bright red eye and white chest and black wings, and they're called puffbacks because they get this sort of snowball feathers shape on their back that puffs out when they're displaying to females, so that's where they get their name from. So they're also in there. Wow, it's really cool. There's so many birds inside this one tree. Sometimes you just got to stop and look around. As Byron would say, tip of the day, stop and look around and try and see what's going on. Now, I miss Byron, actually. Last night was a lot quieter around the dinner table. He was always good for a laugh, particularly around the dinner table. Seemed to bring out his chatty side.
Boring.
No. So, Chitty Chatty Meg, you wondering if these birds lay eggs, even when they're not breeding, like chickens do? Not as far as I know, Chitty Chatty Meg. Now, hold on, Seb, we've got a woodpecker as well. Oh no, it flew out over the top of us, but it looked like a golden-tailed woodpecker that was also in there. Now, Chitty Chatty Meg, no, not as far as I know. Most of these birds will construct a nest and will only lay the eggs when they are actually breeding. But it might be possible in certain of the species, but not as far as I've ever read or heard. But it could be possible. I mean, there's a lot of the times with nests, we don't actually go and physically check what's inside the nest, just because we don't want to cause any issues and don't want to try and disturb that animal in any way or that bird. And so if you see them nesting, it's normally when they have actually bred and laid eggs for the purpose of actually having chicks. And so most of it is only when they're breeding, not just laying eggs for the sake of laying eggs. Right, who is this? Whereabouts, Seb?
Check my monitor. There.
What are you? Orange-breasted bushshrike. Look at that. That's cool. Now, these guys generally are in thickets and not easily seen at all, but they are one of the most beautiful birds, and they've got a very cool call that is very apt for the morning. And since we were talking about Byron, they have a call that says coffee, tea, or me. So that's how they call, and it's perfect for all of us. Well, Seb, you're a coffee drinker, aren't you, Seb? Or tea?
No, more tea.
So Seb's more tea. He's on my side of the world, and then we've got Byron and Ali and Ferg on the coffee side. Now, bushshrike has just come out again, so you see it bouncing there. You isn't perfect if you just go straight in now. Seb, there we go. It was just there somewhere. It's amazing the camouflage of that bird. It's got this very green back that makes it quite tough to see, but there it is in the background on this sort of top right corner. There we go. Straight into the left a little bit. There you can see its tail just sticking down, and there it's flown away. But that was cool. Well spotted, Seb. That's a very cool find. It's not something we see all the time, and so our birds are delighting us. Even though little Thamba is fast asleep on top here, the birds are really coming out, and these are the best places to bird. In these thicker areas, often get lots of birds hanging out here. It's a good place for safety, and if you spend time, you can often get quite rare birds. So for all our birders this morning, hopefully we've added some species to your bird list. I know some of you have just started out, and others, well, there are some birds that we don't commonly see at all. So Starlight, you say you've gone to 107 on your bird list. Well done, Starlight. That is a impressive list. So you'll have to let us know what birds you're missing and what birds you would like to see, and we'll try and see if we can't find them. We haven't done much birding in the last few weeks. Well, I certainly haven't done enough birding, so I think it's time to start doing a little bit more birding again. When I sit in places like this and I see lots of birds, it kind of gets me all excited to try and see if I can't find some of the winter birds that are around, and so definitely think we need to do some birding. And Thamba agrees with me. You can see he's now raised his head to agree with me. What you watching? Now the Egyptian geese are flying over. Look. Yes, those are Egyptian geese. You can't catch them in the sky. So Anna, you're wondering how common a green-eyed leopard is. Well, just hold on, the Egyptian geese are tormenting Thamba. I think he's wondering why is it that they can fly and I can't, because he's kind of looking as they go and squawk past him, almost as though he wants to chase them. Well, and green-eyed leopards are not as uncommon as you would think. We actually see a few of them, but they're not as common as the yellow or sort of brownish-eyed leopards that we do see from time to time. So it's a little bit more rare than those colors, but it's not the rarest color. The rarest colors that we see is normally blue. That's the color that most leopards don't have. There's very few of them that have proper blue eyes, like what Tiani's got, and Anderson's got very light colored eyes as well. So that's a little bit unusual. And then the most unusual of eyes in leopards is when they have two different colored eyes. Now, it does happen from time to time. There have been a lot of recorded cases, even here in the Sabi Sands, of leopards with one green, one brown, or one blue and one green. So that is quite something to see, and I'm still yet to see it myself, but I'm hoping one day that I will be able to see a leopard with two different colored eyes. Now, it used to happen a long time ago, and I've seen quite a number of photos of it. There's none in recent history. So when I say recent history, in the last sort of 10 years, there's been no adult leopards with two different colored eyes, but it does happen. Are you going to go hunt some Egyptian geese? That would be fantastic if he decides to go down to the dam and start chasing some of the geese around. But he's definitely up and moving, which is good news for us. So it means that we will continue our morning with Thamba. And you see, sometimes patience pays off when it comes to leopards in particular, and cats in general. A lot of the time we have this sort of instant gratification, and we want to be able to see an animal and know that it moves around straight away and does everything straight away. And so it's actually good sometimes just to spend a little bit of time in that area and spend time with the animal itself, and you'll be able to actually see some amazing things. The longer you spend with them, the more insights we get into their life. So spending time like this with little Thamba is not the worst thing in the world. But their camouflage astounds me. Seb and I were talking about it just now. If you had to drive here right now, there is no ways in the world at driving speed that you would spot that leopard. You can see it completely disappears inside there. It's almost impossible to see this leopard, yet we're somehow able to view them from time to time, and that's why we're so lucky here in the Sabi Sands, is that our leopards are a little bit more relaxed and they allow us these special glimpses into their lives, and it really is astounding just how well they camouflage. Seb, I'm going to move you a little bit because you can't. That's okay, I can still see him. I've got a gap here, so if we go back it should be better. Now I'm going to try and just see if I can't put you a little bit in this gap here, Seb. Tell me if you can see his face.
It's flat, so no, but he lifts up his head.
Okay, let's just try and go forward, because I see there's a little gap through here that we might be able to get on his face. Might be a little bit of a tough one, but let's try. There we go, that's much better. Look at that, Seb.
A bit more forward. Okay.
Yep. A bit more? Are we good?
We should be fine, thank you.
Perfect. Seb, I always have to listen to Seb a lot more, because with his French accent, when he tells me that I need to do something, it sounds like a foreign movie director, and then I have to listen. So, but there we go. That's as good as it gets, Seb. I don't think we can ask for much better than that. Yes, we are admiring you, big boy, and you can see he's now up, showing himself off. You are a very, very pretty leopard, I must be honest. And well, another big yawn. You can see how white those teeth are. It's also another way that you can age cats, is by the color of their teeth. As those teeth start to yellow, and when they get older, it will become more and more of a mustardy color that will develop on the teeth themselves. And by the time they get very old, their teeth almost look the same color as their coat. So MJ, you're wondering if Thamba is doing any hunting of his own on smaller animals. Well, MJ, I would imagine so. I would imagine he is definitely doing much like what Hosana and Shongile were doing when they were still with Karula, and that is to be able to try and hunt as much as possible of smaller things. So he'll find that while he's sitting here, even when mom's away, if a dwarf mongoose comes past, or a lizard, or birds, or terrapins, that he's definitely going to be trying to do that. I haven't personally heard of him catching anything large yet, not like what we've heard with Hosana and Shongile, but it's possible. You know, he's spent a lot of time in areas where we don't get to see him, and so it is very possible that he has caught things on his own already that we just don't know about. And hopefully now they're here in this area, and I hope we're going to spend a lot more time with them, then we'll see if he starts to hunt for himself. I would imagine that most definitely is a situation that he is hunting for himself at the moment. So, Lauren, you're wondering if leopards could live off a bug diet or an insect diet. Well, I don't know if they could live off it, particularly not these leopards in this area. These leopards in this area are big, bulky animals, and they need quite a lot of food to survive. If you go into other parts of Africa, and so into Cape Town and those areas, you'll find they are a lot smaller. In fact, a big female leopard would be smaller than what Thamba is now, and so they would probably be able to survive off an insect diet where they just got enough food, particularly if they're in an area with termites. Termites are nutrient rich and they might be able to survive off that. But generally, no, they are a large animal, and so they need small mammal species as well: rats, birds, lizards. And the combination of that with insects, they would definitely be able to survive off. So birds and insects, or lizards and insects, or birds and lizards. So they might not need small mammals, but they need slightly larger things just to sustain them, particularly in those areas. Here it wouldn't be possible. Here they would not be able to live off insects just because of the size that they are. They need a lot more nutrients to sustain such a large body, and so they need to catch these mammals that they do go after. And we know that leopards have such a wide variety of animals that they hunt, and in fact here in the sort of eastern parts of South Africa, and even in Kenya and Tanzania, they have the widest array of dietary items out of all of the predators that have been studied. So you find lion, cheetah, wild dog, hyena, they all sort of eat certain things, but these guys physically hunting have the widest array. And I think it was recorded one leopard alone ate 37 different species of animals, which when you think about it is really quite a lot of different species that they go after. So is an incredible animal, and why it can survive in so many different habitats. Right, well, little Thamba is posing, he's looking around, and so we're going to stay with him in case he decides to get up and start moving. Where he's looking at the moment is up towards quarantine, and we know at this time of the morning often things like impala will come down to come and drink. So I think he's maybe watching something in the distance, and so we're going to stay with him while he hunts. And while we do that, let's go across to Ali and see what she's up to and where she's gotten. And I must be honest, I'm a little bit jealous of her squirrel sighting because it sounded fantastic. Well, welcome back everybody, and sorry about the little technical gremlins that have crept in. I know we've had a few issues with our internet provider, and that's what's been causing the stream just to dip a little bit, so I'm sorry about that. But as you can see, little Thamba is out and about now, and he seems to have spotted something because he's going into almost stalk mode, and I wonder if there isn't something that he's busy trying to hunt at the moment. He keeps kind of moving along, and he's going up on these termite mounds, and he's checking all over the place and then walking sort of towards the dam wall. So I don't know if he's spotted something that is somewhere close to the dam wall. Now I see what he's spotted. He's spotted a hippo. Can you see it on the top there, Seb? Just straight up on the top, look for the shiny object. Looks like a hippo that's busy wandering there. So, no, down, Seb. It's something that we're not supposed to be looking at all. I thought it was a hippo because it had a nice sort of shiny back, but it's not. It's those that must not be named. So definitely carry on and try and see if we can't keep up with little Thamba. Sorry about that, Seb. My fault.
No, okay.
Looked just like a hippo, though, with that shiny coat that we saw. So I'm going to try and see if we can't find Thamba and see where he is. And while we try and reposition and try and keep up with our little cat, let's go back to Ali, who I believe is ticking off all the smaller, more interesting animals this morning, and now has a little Pumba. Little Thamba is walking, but he's being shouted at by squirrels, and so he's now slinking off, I think, back into his drainage section. So what I'm going to try to do is just reposition us slightly. Seb, I'm just going to go back, if that's okay, and try to get round him. But he's watching the impalas that are off in the distance. You can see them kind of opposite us in that open section that is close to the dam, and so he's just watching them, and you can see how he slinks. He uses his floating collarbones to be able to get low down and to be able to then walk without being seen. So really cool to see. Now I'm going to try and just get around him. He is so pretty. Hey boy. Now hopefully so Ash's one, you want to know why there's white and black on their ears. So I'm sure you've taken notice of Thamba's rather large set of ears that he has. Now, the reason that they have these black and white spots is, or black and white markings, is so that they can see one another. So when he's young and he wants to follow his mom, he just looks for those contrasting white and black ears, and he's able then to see her and be able to spot her from a distance to be able to keep up with her. So that's why they have that situation, and it's just a following signal, and that's why it's on the back of the ears, because if it was on the front, it would be very obvious for prey animals, and it would be very difficult then for him to be able to hunt, or her to be able to hunt. Whereas now you can see that those ears from behind are quite easy to see, and therefore he can follow. If his mom is walking ahead of him, he can follow her and see the ears as they go. Now, where are you off to, boy? You keep moving around and sniffing around. I wonder if mom didn't scent mark there. You can see he's smelling, and he's already practicing the phlegm and grimace. So he had his lips curled back slightly. You can see his mouth was out. Let's see if he does it again. I wonder if mom didn't scent mark there, or maybe even Tingana's scent mark that's been around. But you can see he's really sniffing quite a lot just to see who this is. You could find that also even Shongile or Hosana. There's his phlegm and grimace. I wonder what he's able to determine from that. He probably knows exactly who that is, and that mom peed here, and well, mom is somewhere around, and so he's just going to sit tight in his little section and wait for her to come back. So Michael, you're asking how long I think Thamba will stay with Thandi. Michael, I honestly don't know. It's such a difficult thing to work out, and it's never the same. Doesn't matter which female I've followed, they've always have different sort of time frames that they let their cubs go. It's not always the same situation, and so difficult to say, but I would imagine probably within the next year. So in 6 months to a year's time, I would imagine that would be about right for him. You know, she's still very much looking after him. We see her coming into this, taking him most days, walking around, so she's very much still looking after him and very much involved with his life. But if she did have to leave him fairly shortly, we know that from Hosana and Shongile that they're able to survive already at this age. So either way, he's gotten that start in life, and he's now able to fend for himself, because, well, mom is still providing, so no need to really try and do too much just yet. But he doesn't seem to be nearly as sort of wanting of hunting as Hosana is. Even when Hosana was still with Karula, we saw that he would go off and chase things, and even Shongile, whereas he seems to be a little bit less prone to that idea. He's far more of a mommy's boy, which is exactly like her first son, Wabiyiza. He was terrible with hunting for the first little bit. He used to just wait for mom to do it all and never really tried much until he was pushed out by her, and then eventually he got it right and started to do just fine. But he was also a very pretty cat, and I was saying earlier that they actually remind me of one another, and I'll show you now what I mean. Mary, you want to know whether or not it's easier to find food now than it is in the summer months? Well, yes and no. So for a leopard, summer is actually a time of plenty. There's the baby impala boom, and there's lots of small impalas, small duiker, small steenbok, and those babies are much easier to hunt than what we see with the more sort of experienced and impalas that we have now. Even the babies that were born in November, December, January have now grown up a little bit. They're a little bit faster, and so it means that it's a little bit harder to actually find small animals. Also in the summer months, there's lots of termites, there's frogs, there's lots of snakes and lizards that are active, and so a lot more variety of food is out and about. The thing is though, is in winter, is that the animals congregate into smaller areas. So in summer they're far more spread out. In winter they congregate around water, so finding prey is a lot easier, and also as winter goes on, so the animals start to weaken. This time of the year the leopards are taking advantage of the fact that the impalas are rutting, and that's why we have a situation that they'll be successful now, and so they use that fact that the males are a little bit weakened to then hunt. So it just depends on the time of the year with that regards, but that's how it all works. And so there's no real time of the year that is more successful than other times. It's just that they'll take advantage of the fact that they can hunt the babies in the summer months, whereas now they've got to focus their attention on bigger animals, which is not always as easy. Now you can see he's just on the top watching the impalas, and I was talking just now about how he looks very similar to Tandi's first son. So I've got a picture of him here, Seb, if you want to just quickly show. So also a trait of her sons is these big ears and big eyes. So if you have a look at Wabayeza, now I'm just going to try and touch there we go. So that was what Wabayeza looked like at a similar sort of age. This was at about a year old. He looked like that, and you can see big ears, big eyes, but he had a black nose, not a pink nose like little Thamba has. So a little bit different in that regard, but still a very similar look to each other, and you can see why, like I say, reminds me of little Wabayeza. Now unfortunately Wabayeza was killed by the sticks a few years ago, and so he's no longer around. And I'm just going to roll forward, Seb, because it's quite a nice picture on top here. As it's dried, we no longer pick up that strong popcorn smell that we whereas for them, who knows how long it actually lasts for. I don't think anybody has actually even studied it and made sure. Are you going to go up the tree? Wouldn't that be nice if you went up a tree for us? Here he comes. Here we go. Are you sneaking up? How cool is this? What an epic way to spend a Saturday morning. Now I know that a lot of you, Saturday is a holiday day, but for me, to be able to, well, not a holiday, but just a day off from work, but to be able to come out to work and spend it like this is really, we do have the best job in the world by far, Seb. Don't you think? Yeah, most certainly. To have this kind of a sighting and to be in the presence of a leopard for such a long period is very, very special indeed. John, you want to know what age they learn to climb trees from? Well, John, generally you'll find from about 3 months they're very sort of good at climbing and are able to climb. Before then, they do try, but they're a little bit sort of clumsy and they fall out a lot, and so it's really not a good time for them and in terms of other predators. And that's why when we say after the first 3 months, generally a leopard's survival rate will increase exponentially because they are now able to climb trees effectively. Now, he seems to be watching all the impalas that are on the distance here, and let's see if he's going to, I think he's going to use the dam wall and go back down to where we had him earlier. I don't think he's going to come up on the dam wall because he's going to be very visible if he does do that. So I just want to see where he goes, but I think, are you going to come up to the dam wall? You are too. That's interesting. I would have thought he would have used the actual dam wall to hide himself from all the impalas on the other side. They're all busy feeding and have no idea that there is a leopard walking around here. So if he comes out onto the dam wall, though, they will definitely spot him. It's that close that they will be able to see him. But he is too. He's look as though he's going to come out right out in front of us. What have you spotted there? Now, it is very steep, so from where he is now, he's either got to decide if he's going to go down or up, but to traverse along it is not going to be very comfortable. Let's see where he goes. No, up onto the dam wall. Oh, hello. So Andy and Julia from Los Angeles. Hello Andy and Julia. You want to know whether or not leopard's scent marking has ruined my taste for popcorn? Well, no, not at all. I still like popcorn, and well, it's just that much better when you drive along and you can smell it in the bush and you know that a leopard's close. So popcorn is not only tasty, but it also now has that connotation that a leopard might be nearby, which is always a good thing. So it in fact has actually made it even better for me. What about you, Seb? You still like popcorn?
I love popcorn.
There we go. No, hasn't ruined either of our love for popcorn, so all good at this stage. Come on, little boy. Are you a bit nervous of coming out into the open? This is so cool. I'm so happy that they're up in this area. It just makes me happy that they're spending time close to camp and that we have the leopard close by and near to the camp, which is always good. It means that our leopard sighting certainly should be very good, and hopefully Tandy sticks around in this area as well. Look at him just creeping along. Look at the size of those paws as well. Massive. Ooh. Maritza, this is an interesting one. You want to know whether or not Thamba would learn to hunt at an older age than compared with a leopard that has a sibling. Well, maybe not. I mean, the sibling might help him in terms of playing and being able to sort of play fight with his sibling and learn from that regard. But other than that, I don't think so. I think it would be a situation where pretty much, you know, he's going to learn from playing by himself anyway and chasing things. And often you'll find single cubs actually pick up hunting quite quickly because they don't have a sibling to play with. They focus their attention on squirrels, francolins, lizards, and they actually hone their hunting technique a lot quicker than what we see with two cubs, because they tend to play together more than actually targeting animals that are going to run away from them. So like Salahesh's daughter Tiani, for example, she already made her first kill at 4 months old. So she killed a baby duiker at 4 months old, which is crazy to think about. In fact, it was about 4.5 months old, but still she was able to kill a baby duiker. And so it shows you when they're on their own, they don't have that sibling to play with, and therefore they go after one another and try and sort of not one another, try and go after prey animals more than they'll go after their siblings. But isn't that just absolutely beautiful? That's as good as it gets. That really is very, very cool. And if you lounge here for the whole day, you're going to make a lot of people very happy, because they'll be able to watch little Thamba go about his business all day from the dam cam. And of course, we are doing that upgrade on the dam cam, so hopefully that will be done soon, and then it will be a lot better, and we'll be able to get a lot better quality images out of it for all of you to enjoy on a day like today. Yes, we're talking about you. You are now a superstar. You know that. Now, we're sitting at Gowrie Dam with our beautiful leopard and some impala in the distance. I believe Ali's had the same idea and made her way towards the dam, but she has something slightly different to show you. He is up and moving again, and he's just dropped behind the dam wall, which is a clever move. He needs to keep using the dam wall to his advantage, and so he's kind of going along, and hopefully what he's going to do is try and go a little bit further than up near the jackalberry. And what he needs to do is basically position himself in a way that he can get into one of these thickets, if he does want to hunt impalas, into one of the thickets that when they come down for water, they literally walk straight onto him. So one of those guarri bush thickets there, if he can get there, then those impalas that will come down for water a little bit later, hopefully would then come right towards him, and he wouldn't actually have to move. So that's what he needs to do if he wants to hunt. And these are all things that he'll learn as he spends time on his own like this and gets these opportunities. So he's going to start thinking about it. You can see he's just tucked in behind the tree there, so that's where that little white tail is. I think he's decided that's where he's going to rest for now. So what we should do, Seb, let's go round and see. Just trying to see if there's a way that we can get down to where he is at this stage. Okay, let's have a look. I'm going to go around, Seb, and see. So, Carl, you're wondering if Thamba would hunt a terrapin? Well, yes, he would. In fact, I think he has been seen
with a terrapin. I remember somebody telling me the other day that they were watching him, and I think he had grabbed a terrapin. So he will indeed grab terrapins, much like Hosana and Shongile have done. He'll also go after the monitor lizards like little Shongile did as well. So it will be one of those situations where he'll utilize his environment as best he can, and any of those animals are all on a leopard's diet, so he'll definitely try and hunt. And so today might be a really interesting day at the dam. You never know. We'll sort of get a sneak peek into Thamba's life and what he likes to hunt. We know that with Shongile, she was a queen at going after the terrapins. Hosana tended to try, but he was more interested in the bigger animals. So just goes to show they all have their own preferences and their own techniques when it comes to hunting. Now we're gonna we good? Maybe not.
Can you just lift it up?
So we're just trying to get our aerial through because I don't want to damage the aerial in any way. Wait. Okay, good. We good.
No, wait.
No, still not. So Seb's doing a bit of mountaineering to try and get the branch over our aerial so that we don't break it, because otherwise Connor's going to shout at me if I have to make him replace another aerial. It's not what we want to be breaking, and we have enough gremlins as it is without doing the damage ourselves. So let's not break an aerial there. Connor is nodding in agreement apparently, because Connor is in FC. So Connor, don't worry, we'll keep your aerial in good condition. We've got you covered. Now obviously Connor is grounded at the moment with the drone, so the drone will be back up and running at some point, but we needed some of that equipment to get to Kenya to help with the TV shows, and so that's why it's grounded. And so Connor isn't making as frequent an appearance as what he was earlier in the year, but we will definitely be having the drone back. And I know some of you also have been wondering about Bushwalk. Bushwalk is a similar situation. We needed 1 or 2 parts that wouldn't clear customs for Kenya, so they went up there, but Bushwalk should be back up and running in the next few weeks, so that will be good. And then we can have a Bushwalker and a vehicle from Djuma, and then the feeds from the Mara as well. Alright, let's sneak through here, Seb. Gotta be careful of the leg, don't want to get a leg pierced by a knob thorn. I already had enough of that with buffalo thorns the other day. Oh, what an epic way to spend our day. It really doesn't get much better. So you can see little Hosana, Thamba, should I say, is just creeping up towards the jackalberry tree, which is where I thought he might go, but I wanted to get a little bit lower than him so that we can get a sort of impression of his size. So the point of this exercise was to get lower. I know I could have stayed that side and we could have seen him from that side, which would have been fine, but I wanted to get a little bit lower than him so that I could then sort of get a impression that he is bigger than us and that we are lower than him. It always makes for much more compelling viewing. You alright there, Seb?
Yeah.
There we go. Now hopefully he's going to stay here somewhere. There we go. It's just creeping along. Oh, you were supposed to stay right there so that I could... Now, if he goes up and he just lies down on top of the wall, it will be perfect, because I can just go in here, and like I say, we'll have our eye-level view of him. But no, this vehicle's unfortunately gone too close, and that's caused Thamba to now run. What's wrong, boy? So unfortunately, it was just somebody got a little close to him, and that's why he's now scattered off into the distance. We'll try and see if we can't go around. Well, that ruined our plans, that's for sure, so we'll try and see if we can't reposition ourselves and get into a better spot again, and hope that this time somebody doesn't drive too close to him. While we do that, I believe Ali is still on her way to another dam, and hopefully there will be something of good nature there for her to see, and hopefully it will be epic so that she can kind of join us in an epic morning so far. Well, I've been through this before, Ali, actually, but I always think that I don't know if I relate to it, but I would like to think that's a little bit like a big bull elephant. I kind of just roam around and do my thing, and I like to have company every now and then, but not all the time, and just take it very easy and super chilled, and so that's what I would want to be. I don't know if I relate to that. I know that everybody else always says I look like a bear, so I suppose that's one option, but I'd like to be kind of like an elephant, to just do my thing and take it very chilled and as it comes in your stride type of lifestyle. I don't really want to be rushing around anywhere, so I don't think I could be a wild dog. Definitely not. But yeah, big bull elephant, walk around, take it easy, have friends around every now and then, socialize a little bit, and not have to worry about too much in life and just have a very chilled time. I think that would be best for me. What about you, Seb? What do you reckon for you? What would you like to be, or what do you think you are? Not sure.
No, not sure.
Not sure. We'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe the viewers can tell us.
Exactly.
Hashtag Safari Live what we think Seb would be. You can see little Thamba has found himself a thicket just while we kind of looking at him. He was got a bit nervous of that approach of the other vehicle and ran onto the termite mound that's nice and dense and thick, and now he's just watching what's going on, and he seems to be very chilled again. It was just a moment of panic for a second there, and now he's in his thicket and on his mound and feeling much better about himself. You can see how well he actually blends in there, and he's still very much watching these impalas. And I think he's very interested in them. He just wants Mom to rather come do it than for him to actually do it himself. And I wonder if it's not time that he's going to have a rest on top of this mound and just take it a lot easier and have a chilled morning. Hopefully Mom will come back with good news for him and bring some food that he'll be able to then go and So Mita, who's 8 years old, hello Mita, you want to know why all cats have a hole in their ears, at the end of their ears. Now I'm not sure what you're talking about, because this little man here has got pretty complete ears. There's no hole that I can see, but if you're talking about where the actual ear goes into the head, well, that hole is because that's where the eardrum is. So like our ears, we have a little outer piece and then there's a hole and it goes inside, and that's where all the sound is actually done. So there is moving parts inside there that take vibrations and turn them into sounds that we hear. So that's what it is, and it's the same with the leopard, is that they have that section inside there. That's where they're able to process the vibrations that they're getting and be able to then analyze the sound and make sure it's something that they can hear and differentiate or make a difference between what sounds they are hearing. So that's why it's like that. But maybe there's another hole that I've missed that you're talking about, but I can't see anything on his ears. His ears look pretty clean to me with no holes on them, so I would imagine maybe I've missed something. Now Ellie's just calling me quickly, so I'm just going to answer her, because otherwise I'll be on the couch again. Go ahead, Ellie. Affirmative, we are at Gari Dam at the dam wall. Ellie was just wondering if she would bump into us if she came down to the dam to see what was happening here. So we just had to tell her that we are at the dam wall itself, so she would bump into us. But it's okay if she does. She hasn't actually seen Thamba yet, so it might be quite nice for her just to come and have a little look at Thamba and see him for the first time. But look how beautiful he is, and those spots, just amazing. You can see now why it works. Look at the dappled light that you've got coming through this tree. So you've got little bits of white and dark and shade and light, and so those spotted patterns of lighter fur and dark fur means that he blends in incredibly well on top of this mountain and in these thickets. And it's why leopards like terrain like this, where they can get into thickets and shaded areas and then try and hide away and be able to spend time being elusive and shy, and use that then to their advantage to be able to hunt. So perfect camouflage for the areas that they like to spend time in. Very cool. Right, I think we should tell Ellie just to come have a quick look and see how excited she can be about Thamba, and we'll carry on and let her have a chance just to see him, because that will be, I think, the right thing to do. Ellie. So I think what we're going to try to do is just try to see how we're going to get out of here at this stage, because we're on quite a slope at this stage, so it's going to be difficult. Now the radio is just far too busy because everyone's just talking, and I don't know why they're talking. There's really no sighting. So Chantal, maybe if you want to let Ellie know, she's welcome to come and have a look if she would like to come and see Thamba for the very first time. It's always, we've all got these bogey leopards that make life difficult for us. Mine is quarantine. Jamie had Inkanyeni, who was her bogey leopard for a while and couldn't find it, and well, it seems like Thandi and Thamba have been giving Ellie the slip over the last few weeks. So it would be nice for her to come and see. And I think if she's not in this area, maybe this afternoon she can come and try and see if she can't find these two. I'm going to try and see if I can't get out of here. Now hopefully the car will go up. It has been an absolute treat. Seb, you are apparently an eagle or a honey badger. How do you feel about all of this? So a lot of you take it as a compliment. Well, a honey badger is a compliment. I like honey badgers. They're quite feisty and they do their thing and they're all over the place, and they are night animals, and we know that you are a night animal. Seb is nocturnal by nature. He is not a diurnal creature. He's a nocturnal creature. So where he is now, it is quite difficult to actually see him. He's just on top here and he's in this thicket, and while you probably would be able to see him, it might be one of those situations where you would just drive straight past him. So he's in there you can see his little tail sticking out, but he was lying right out in the open for us, which really made it a lot easier for us to find it. And Seb and I were talking about just how it's right time, right place, and luck is such a huge part of what we do, because I could have turned down a different road. We might not have come down here as he was lying in the open. He could have been in one of the thickets and we had driven right past, no tracks, and it would have been very difficult to actually find him. So it just goes to show a bit of luck, a bit of right time, a bit of right place, and, well, a positive attitude. Seb, we said we were going to have a good morning, didn't we? And so this is what has come out of it, which I am very grateful for. Alright, well, we're going to move out, and hopefully Ali will be able to find little Thamba if she does come past here, because he is not too badly hidden. And while we do that, let's go across to her and see where she is and whether or not she's close by, so that I can give her directions.
Stunning creature, aren't you? Wow. He is so dark compared to some of the other leopards that I've seen around here. Well, hello, boy. Awesome to meet you at last. You and your mother have been quite elusive to me. Oh, I think I'm gonna have to make a very nice cake for Tristan and Seb, just for letting us come and have a look and see that Thamba is actually a real leopard. I've spent so much time trying to look for him and Tandy, and I've gotten nowhere. And here they've been all along, or well, here he has been. I'm sure Tandy's busy somewhere else, maybe trying to procure a meal for them both. And this is quite further into Karula's territory, so I wonder if maybe they're gonna start, if we're gonna start seeing them around here a bit more. Wonderful. Oh. On the marble cliff, you're wondering which cats don't have retractable claws, well, normally all true cats have retractable claws. Like in this case of Thamba, we can't really see them. But the only similar species of a cat that's actually not even too closely classified as a cat is a cheetah. And the reason for it is because the cheetah need the traction. They need to grip onto the land when they're running. So having the claws out just allow them to better grip onto the ground when they hunt their prey down. Whereas lions and leopards and all the smaller cats that we have in this particular area, they've all got retractable claws, and when they're not using them to either scent mark or to go climb trees or to bring down their prey, then the claws stick around pretty safely back into their little pouches. I'm so impressed by Thamba. He is a very spotty leopard. And I know this might sound odd, and because all of the leopards have got spots, but he just seems to have even more than some of the other leopards that I've seen. And very dark boy. I wonder if you're going to be quite a big boy, judging by the size of those ears and those paws. They are really very big. That is quite something. Likely he can pick up that there's a bit of a different scent, because there will be my smell plus Ferg's smell all together. But I think what they recognize mostly is the smell of the car, with other things that perhaps they don't know how to pinpoint. Because it will be the engine fluid and the steering fluid and the brakes and the carbon dioxide that we put out. So I'm sure he can relate to the fact that there's a human thing, rock, car, creature moving close to it that doesn't really do anything other than come around and make a bit of noise. But I don't think he can tell that I'm a completely different person than to the two that were before watching him. He is quite a stunning creature. Bless you, Ferd. And the ears are also so big. I think maybe some of the bigger males around here might have some competition once you start growing. And I wonder if maybe this is part of Tandy's plan, just to bring him to an area from all of the other epicenters of maybe some other territories. But then you see if maybe we can have a bit of a better look and enjoy the company of this ghost that I've been chasing this whole week and haven't managed to see until now. But let's go over to Tristan and see what small thing he's managed to find this morning. Well, Thamba has also decided that the day is done, the morning is done. He's been posing so beautifully for everyone for pretty much the whole morning that maybe it's time for him to have a bit of a good sleep. Now, I wonder if Tristan was actually nice enough to let me come and have a look, or if he wants to get to the bacon before we do. I think I'm going to have to speak to him about this whole thing. Oh, annoying flies all around poor Thamba. It's incredible just how well he's been hiding, and I'm sure these last few days that we've been looking for him desperately, he's just been looking at me all along and laughing at the fact that I couldn't spot him in the bushes. But what a wonderful creature that has allowed us to be around him the whole morning and so close to home, which is great. I really do hope that they stick around, because I mean it would be nice to be able to find them a bit more often. There's a squirrel alarming in the distance. That's what's gotten him up. And I wonder if perhaps Tandy is on her way. Definitely got his attention. I don't think that squirrel was looking at Thamba in particular, but perhaps, like I said, maybe Tandy's come back, which would be quite interesting to see. But if not, I think it's been a very wonderful morning with all the little things that we've been able to see today, and all the trees and the beautiful lights and the kudus and the squirrels, and then of course just having this beautiful presence of Thamba looking at us or moving around. He's put on quite a show this morning, and I think we've got to be very grateful for that. I think you also think Mama's coming, hey? Can't see anything from here though. Beautiful boy. Alright, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. We've had a wonderful morning, and thank you all for joining us. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as what we have, and we'll see you guys again this afternoon. Hopefully we'll be able to find this gorgeous boy one more time, and perhaps he'll be in the company of his wonderful mother. But until then, we're gonna let him rest, and we're gonna head back onto camp for breakfast.